Attention please. This upload is only for educational purpose. No intention to infringe copyrights. Learning English with subtitles. GPITRAL. GPITRAL. Definitely a must-see. Follow us.
They get out and point.
January 1976, the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. Like wildfire in a wheat field.
He sees a giant bat in the mirror on the ground. He jumps in the car. They drive off.
Was raining down terror from above.
The idea of winged attackers is especially frightening in a place like the Rio Grande Valley. Such an open place with no caves or forests to hide in. The idea that you might be attacked at any moment, that those talons could reach down and yank you off the ground, was enough to make people want to stay inside and give up their daily routines.
In a few short weeks, more than 10 different witnesses in South Texas reported the winged creature. In February of 1976,
he walks into his garage.
Two more believers. Almost 4 decades after an incident on an outlying road north of Houston, brothers David and John Dott have come forward to share their experience.
It was February 1976. I was 23 and my brother was 21.
Come on.
My brother David was driving. It was a nice little car. We were on our way to work on the night shift at a local manufacturing company.
Bye, hon. Hey, come on, we're late.
Come on, man, we're always late.
We took the usual route that we always take. And we went about a mile or so down the road where it was just pastures on both sides of the road. We were listening, of course, to rock and roll music, as we always did.
What is this junk you're always listening to? When are you going to get some decent music in here?
All of a sudden, he said, "Look up ahead." There was something standing in the middle of the road.
Man, he ain't going to move. You need to slow down.
It was right in front of us. There was nothing but that creature in the headlights. You could absolutely see it. And it had really intense red eyes.
The wings were more like bat wings, not feathers, but more like a bat look to it.
And it took 3 or 4 steps towards the car.
Back up, back up.
I just freaked.
And then it just flew right over the top of the car.
The brothers drive off, leaving their car wing mirror on the ground. Satellite view of the U.S., focusing on the south of Texas.
Huge red glowing eyes staring down at us as it flew over the car. It was a horrible, loud, flapping noise.
What was that?
I don't know.
There it goes.
What the hell is it?
And we looked at each other and said, "Nobody's going to believe us."
John, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And all I was about is getting out of there. I drove about
Caption,
the limit the car would
Monsters
drive
and
so I could get
Mysteries.
back to civilization.
The brothers were so convinced no one would believe them, they never discussed it again.
We actually never said a thing to each other, it seemed. I don't remember saying anything. We were both in shock.
It's been probably 38 years since this happened, and I promised I'd never tell anybody, but maybe it's time people heard this story.
I suspect that a lot of people who see creatures like this keep the story to themselves. I'm sure that a lot of people just keep their mouth shut for fear of what people might say.
It's understandable that they're very hesitant to talk about these things publicly because they've obviously seen something that is unexplainable, something you can't find in the science books.
Back in 1976.
The calm river in
we were pretty
sunshine.
young, full of piss and vinegar, as they say, and so when you see this huge creature flying at you,
John, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
let me tell you what, that changed our attitude. We weren't so full of ourselves after this.
They park in the woods.
With so many sporadic sightings, it's led many residents to wonder if such creatures could really exist.
There were enormous birds that lived in the Ice Age up until about 10,000 years ago, and these were known as teratorns. One North American species had a wingspan of about 18 feet across. There's a very strong possibility that some of these animals may have lived on beyond their presumed extinction dates.
The father looks through binoculars.
Perhaps they live in very remote areas of our continent, and that's why they're only seen very rarely.
We've got many large winged creatures out here. We've got sightings of a very large raven-like creature with a 30-foot wingspan. We've got sightings of
The young boy points the gun at the deer.
We have pockets of breeding populations still left around the world of prehistoric type animals.
I mean, scientists discover new species every day. In the dense rainforests, out in the vast deserts, and in a region like the Rio Grande Valley, with such open, expansive areas, is it really hard to imagine that a species has escaped detection for hundreds of years? I don't think so.
Hundreds of miles southwest from the Dot brothers' encounter, a flying monster's attack that same year in Hidalgo County would transform a young boy into a hero.
He saw his father gripped by the talons of an enormous avian humanoid that flapped its wings and tried to lift the man out of the deer stand. Manuel Perales struggled to get free. Danny knew he had to act.
In the 1970s, witnesses claim a bizarre flying frankenbeast, Bat Squatch, unleashed terrifying airstrikes from the skies of South Texas.
You had a couple of cops who, when doing their rounds late at night, both independently spotted a leathery winged creature flying overhead. A man who was fishing in Brownsville saw a creature that he claimed looked like an enormous bat.
Bat Squatch is a very strange-looking creature. It's described as standing about 9 feet tall, very muscular with a head like a dog or a wolf, blue-tinted fur, yellow crescent-shaped eyes, and of course, giant, leathery bat-like wings.
David Bowles grew up in the Rio Grande Valley.
The end.
He has collected monster stories throughout the region.
One of the most nail-biting encounters was the one that Manuel Perales and his 12-year-old son Danny had in the month of January of that year. It was an uncommonly cold January morning.
Hey, Daddy, help me out.
When father and son arrived in their radial pickup at a friend's ranch in northern Hidalgo County. It was early in the morning.
Let's go. Right, that's it.
When father and son pulled their rifles out, their cooler full of sandwiches, and climbed up into the deer stand and began the long wait. After a few hours, a deer did arrive. Just the sort that his father wanted to bag that day. Manuel nudged his son, indicating that he should go ahead and take the shot. But as Danny sighted and looked into the eyes of the deer, he realized he couldn't do it. He turned to his father and simply shook his head. His father was clearly upset and took aim to take the shot himself. However, his rifle jammed, and at that very moment, the deer bolted. His father turned to Danny and asked him why couldn't you take the shot? Danny, before he could reply, was startled to see his father